Should be live now. Well, if you notice, the quality should be a little bit better. Had to get a better piece of technology. So everything should look a lot better. And if you hear any background noise, it's just the little kitten running around doing acrobatics. But this is a video request, so we're not going to take up too much time. Yeah, as you see. We're not going to take up too much time right now. I just wanted to do this live stream test because this is my first time live on this particular device, so I wanted to make sure that we didn't have any glitches or any technical difficulties. So far everything is looking good. So let's get into it. So I was asked to speak about crystals, energy grids, and the speaking in tongues phenomena. If we start off with crystals, you can say crystals are natural batteries, meaning with crystals you can create an energy grid, meaning you can take the crystals that you already have right now, you can say you can put them in a circle, and if you put your hand in the middle of that circle that you created with those crystals, you should be able to feel the energy flowing between the crystals. You should be able to feel or sense energy in motion that's unique to that particular crystals in that particular energy grid, right? So this is how we created, basically in any situation that you could find yourself in, this is how we created grids to heal ourselves, to go deeper into trance, to have mystical experiences, anything from the practical to the impractical are all possible via crystal magic, right? Which is a form of alchemy. Because you can say most people know that crystals have spiritual qualities or attributes. But most people may not know that the crystals are actually connected to the planetary forces, just like everything else and just like everyone else. So when it comes to putting particular crystals together and synchronizing their energies, it's the same thing as producing alchemy, basically a recipe. Everything requires a recipe. If you want to cook something, it requires a recipe. Everything requires a recipe, right? So you can say the core of magic, or the essence of magic, is really about the recipe, is the combinations in which you have synchronized in order to bring forth a result. We call this the law of correspondence. So it's not just about as above, so below. It's also about we have many different correspondences that synchronizes us to certain planetary influences and certain planetary energies. This is essentially the whole science and the whole art of, you can say, witchcraft, right? You can say witches had the recipes to bring about certain results, which is why they were so feared and things became so political. And even to this day, it's still a certain type of stigma attached to even that name, that title, because of the energies, the hidden resources, as we call the occult, that they had access to. So because they understood the recipes They were able to get things done. Because once again, the core of magic or the source of magic is about knowing the recipe based on what it is that you're trying to bring forth. Right? 93 Kenan, what's up with you? It's all about knowing the recipe that will assist you in bringing forth your desired result. That's what it means to be a magician. That's what it means to be an alchemist. You know certain recipes. You know certain combinations that are able to get certain things done. So, for example, you know how to create a healing crystal grid because you understand what planets are connected with what crystals. So, you know what planets are harmonious, and then you know what planets clash. So, you know this energy grid that I'm creating for, in this case, for healing. I know that whatever planets that I use in combination, whatever planets that I synchronize, I want to make sure that they're harmonious together. Because if they are not, then they're going to cause tension. So you see, when we understand the recipe, what's up, Rashad? When we understand the recipe, we understand what energies to combine and what energies to leave alone. Again, depending on what type of magic we are working and what type of results we are going for. What's up, eyes wide open? And I appreciate you as well. I appreciate everybody as always. Just been kicked back. Because I know, it's all about going to the next level. It's not all about, just saying the same thing over and over again. So even if I speak about things that I've already spoken about, I at least want to give a new angle. What's up, mine too? 93, 93. So we in here. Yeah, we in here. So once again, crystals. If you understand the recipe, if you understand the alchemy, you can create a grid, as we also call a portal. This is also how people open up portals. It's based on the type of crystal combination that you have. So that's why in the new age, we have become more familiar with crystals and the such. Now, of course, you could say it has become watered down because most people just know the spiritual attributes of crystals or the healing attributes. There's a cat hiding behind me. No, the cat is right here. But you see, it's a little kitten, so the kitten is just doing acrobatics all over, all over. So that's what y'all hear in the background. The kitten just leaping from the couch, so it's just going all over the place, right? So it's just doing its thing. It's definitely a young little lion, right? So when you understand that in order to bring forth certain results, you need to know what energies are required to create that particular portal. You can say that's the whole science of Kabbalah. The whole science of Kabbalah is understanding how all of the pieces connect together, as we call correspondence. So the more you are able to comprehend correspondence, which is the second universal law, the more you understand, okay, this is what makes something a ritual versus something that's just done for mundane purposes. So when a person lights a candle, for example, and they would consider that a ritualistic act because that candle may have a certain intent, and then you're tapping into the element of fire, which is the element of desire, right? So the quickest way you can say to go to your desires through the fire element, because when you stare at the actual fire, just staring into a flame puts you in an alpha brainwave state. So it helps you get into trance naturally, just looking into the flame. So when you have your intent already set, and then you have the appropriate color with the appropriate intent, so you know what your intent is, and you know what color you should be using for that particular intent, and you know what deity to utilize. You basically have your whole formula set up. Then you have an understanding of what's going on inside of you and what's going on outside of you, so you understand how the planets are acting in real time, and you also understand your own planetary attributes, so how the planets are interacting inside of you based on your natal chart, right? This is why these things are, they seem complex, but this is just the nature of the occult. This is what essentially qualifies a person to be an occultist or not, because you say it's just a bunch of puzzle pieces that can be assembled in multiple different ways. It's not just one way to assemble the piece. See, that's what makes a occult different than anything else, because it's not just one way you can assemble the pieces, right? What's what? What's up, MMZ? What's up, L Will? Well, I live life currently. Salute to you. So it's all about that recipe, right? Now, if we speak about speaking in tongues, now we have to go into possession. See, most people have not seen people get possessed and actually, interact with spirits. So it doesn't necessarily seem real. And it's basically people feel like, people are just pretending, people are just making this stuff up, right? This is why the spirit always brought proof. So if a person became possessed, for example, you would know that they are possessed and what spirit is possessing them based on the acts that are performed during the possession, right? So you can say certain deities, let it be known who they are because they cause a person to speak in tongues. Another deity may, do readings on people, right? Speak to them and tell them what they need to know. Another deity may perform healing rituals. So basically, one deity will perform divination. One deity will perform healing. You can say another deity is for war, as we know, right? Each deity has its own personal assignments. So you could be able to identify what deities are possessing a person based on the attributes that are being expressed by that particular person. So speaking in tongues is just a phenomenon to identify the particular spirit that you're working with. Again, for the people that do get possessed. Because this happened in all cultures, right? So whether it's the woman in church catching the Holy Ghost, or it's some guy in the woods somewhere doing a fire ritual alone, people are, you can say, being possessed, irregardless of their religion, their way of life. Because this is a way of life, right? You can say that the spiritual force is real. This is how a person becomes more conscious, because they just become more expansive of the energies that they have access to. You can say the main difference between a child and an adult is an adult knows what energies that they have access to, and they know what energies are, you can say, positive, and what energies are negative, what energies are destructive, and what energies are constructive. And you know not to mix these particular energies, right? So you know when the energies come together, you know what energies are harmonious, and you know what energies that should not mix, right? So you can say this is just what it means to be an adult. You become a timekeeper, right? You become a master of time. And you also understand what energies go together and what energies don't go together. So all of these phenomenons, you can say, is a form of possession. We are just so attached from that or detached from that, because we live in a Christian society, right? If we were somewhere else, then this would be a normal occurrence. Like you can say if we were in a third world country, then this will be a regular occurrence. This wouldn't surprise anybody. But because we in a first world situation where we have access to technology, you see our magic is particularly different. Give me 1 second here. So I'm saying all this to say is because we are in a first world country, or depending on where you're watching, the way we approach magic and perform magic is going to be different because we are less connected to nature. So basically, everything I've been saying is very easy when you have direct access to nature. So you can say that's why the ancients, right? That's why the ancients, it was easier for them, you can say, to access to spiritual force because you can say whatever recipes that they need or needed, all they had to do was go out into nature and where that particular herb or plant was located, and they can go extract that. But because we are in a capitalistic society, certain, you can say, herbs and plants are harder to access, right? Because everything is about getting the money now. So certain resources are not as easy to access as it may have been in the past, all right? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, you can email it to me, asher@asherrenew.com. Yeah, so whatever you want to send, it's no problem. So I'm saying this to say we must adapt our magic in accordance to our particular environment. Meaning there is no excuse why you cannot be a magician. So it don't matter if you're in a third world country, first world country, or anything in between. It don't matter your particular position in life. All the things that we think matter actually don't matter because everything is based on the particular atmosphere in which you must conquer. Meaning you can say your magic is going to be different in the West, like if you're in Los Angeles, versus if you're somewhere in New York, which is going to be different if you're down south, which is going to be different if you're in the Midwest, because these are different atmospheres. Different planets have a different influence on these particular locations, right? Because everything breaks down to mathematics. So that's why with numbers, you can say you can do a lot of things with numbers, right? Shout out I Live Life, becoming an initiate. It's a lot of extra resources back in the background. So definitely enjoy yourself. Because your particular situation shouldn't matter. Because you should be able to tap into these forces in whatever way you need to tap into the forces. So you can say in more nature-based ways of life, where you actually have to go to particular locations. Because with nature-based religions, in order to interact with certain deities, you have to go to certain locations because certain things have been done in those particular locations in order to, you can say, summon that energy and give it a physical form. That's why you have to go to, you can say, a graveyard or a particular graveyard to work with particular spirits, because particular rituals have been done at that particular location in order to bring forth that currency, right? That's, you can say, in the more nature-based religions. So people summon the energies at particular locations by performing particular rituals that open up portals to those particular deities, right? So in order to open up certain portals, you can say it requires a certain recipe. And you can say the ancient people, and even people to this day, have access to those recipes. That's why you have secret societies. That's the whole definition of what a secret society would be. A secret society is just based on those who have access, you can say, to those hidden resources. Cat is biting the fuck out of my hand right now. So your magic has to be based on what you have access to. So as I was saying, with nature-based religions, you will perform certain rituals at certain locations to bring forth these deities. So if you're in a non-nature-based religion or a way of life, which is basically what a magician is or what an alchemist is, like you're not confined to a particular path or you're not walking a particular way, you have access to all doors. You're not walking through a particular door, you have access to all doors. Which is more so, you can say, the American way, the more American approach to magic. And that's based on the history of America. What I mean by that is, we know that the world constantly changes, right? You go from ancient cultures to modern day religions, right? This has happened all over the planet. However, when it comes to America, what makes America different and unique is we see most people, depending on where the land that they occupy, they are still connected to their ancient, you can say, civilizations, their ancient cultures, right? They're still connected. Over here in America, you can say we are a brand new people, right? We can't really connect ourselves, you can say, to the ancient past. It's not that we necessarily can't. We're just not meant to do it the way everyone else does it. Meaning, if you're somewhere in China and you have access to the Great Wall, and you can say, my ancestors built that, my Chinese ancestors built this Great Wall of China, you know, that I'm able to benefit from to this day. That's a little different than if you're in America and America is full of people coming from all types of different places, right? America is full of people that come from different places. So you can say being American is not just one thing. Because even America is not just one ideology. Just because you're in America don't mean you're a Democrat. It doesn't mean that you're a Republican. It doesn't mean that you're independent. You know, that's your decision to make, right? That's your political affiliation. And your political affiliation could be different than your religion, right? You can be a Christian Democrat. You can be a Christian Republican. You can be an Islamic Democrat. You can be an Islamic Republican. So we got a lot of things going on over here, right? As to how we would define what it means to be an American. Because it's a mix of, you can say, every goddamn thing. America, you can say, is a mix of everything. So when it comes to the magical culture here, that's why the American approach is, you can say, a non-initiation approach. Meaning you have ancient civilizations, even to this day, You know, whether you want to call it Ifa, Yoruba, Palomayombe, you have certain magical paths that you have to get initiated to gain certain secrets, right? To gain certain secrets, you have to be initiated. They're not just going to tell you something just because you walked up on them and you asked a question. You have to be initiated into that particular path in order to gain certain information. So this is how they protect their secrets. They protect their secrets by not allowing just anybody to gain access to them. When it comes to America, we don't have that particular approach because we don't even have the history, or you can say the consistent history, to even have something preserved for that long. You can say 500 years worth of secrets. Well, we see a lot that's happened within 500 years, right? We went from being slaves to not being slaves, you know, having to worship, you know, saints, well, not particular saints because it was Christianity, but being able to worship the, you can say, the real deities disguised as saints and disguised as, you know, biblical characters, so on and so forth, right? We had to go through all these particular transformations versus now you can just be whatever you want to be. That wasn't the case, you can say, 500 years ago. You couldn't just do whatever you wanted to do and just be whatever you wanted to be and just people have to accept it and be cool. The laws were different. So because the laws began to change, people began to reflect those laws. So people became, you know, more, you can say now we have the freedom of speech. The freedom of speech is not guaranteed everywhere on the planet. You can say it's guaranteed here in America, but it's not guaranteed everywhere. I'm bringing all that up to say the American spirit, you can say, is a composite spirit. It is a spirit made of many different things. You can say it's a puzzle that can be assembled in many different ways, as we call Western occultism. That's what the American spirit is. The American spirit consists of many different components because America has been influenced by every other civilization, every other culture that came before it. So all we did here in America is apply alchemy and mix everything in. Again, that's how hip hop came into existence. That's how new art forms come into existence. We remix things. We take things that already exist, and you can say we modernize it. So you can say the modern form of magic currently is technomancy. You can say that is the modern form of magic, which hip hop played a heavy role in making that the reality. Because you know, like if you were into hip hop, whether from the early days or modern days, you're around a lot of technology. Because you could say a lot of production goes into music, right? So even just being a part of, you can say, the hip hop culture, you are amongst advanced technology. So whether you're doing your own music or you're going to someone else's studio, you're around advanced technology. People that are doing things that other people simply cannot do, right? And this is something that you have been witnessing your entire time in hip hop. You have been witnessing advanced technology and how magic transcends, you can say, the natural elements. That's basically, you can say, what America is essentially symbolized. America symbolizes magic going beyond the natural elements. So what I mean by magic going beyond the natural elements, you can say magic going into the fifth element that we call spirit, right? So you got the four elements: fire, water, air, earth. Then you have the fifth element that we call spirit, or some people call ether, right? So you can say hip hop is etheric. Technomancy is etheric. So that would mean magic in this case is etheric. We are currently going through a phase where magic is becoming more and more etheric. more and more based upon the spirit. Because you can say hip hop is not even tangible. Hip hop is not something that you can point at, especially the music. The music is intangible. You can't touch music. So it's like it's completely in the spirit world. All right, we should be good now. Should be good now. So let me wrap this up. Cause I didn't went a lot longer than I even wanted to. Magic is etheric, right? Wanted to know if there is a universal way to charge King Solomon pendant. It depends on what you're trying to bring forth and what your intent is. Because to say that there's a universal way to do something, that means everyone will have to have the same intent, which we know is not the case. So the way you consecrate your magical emblems, sigil seals, will be based on the intent. So it really can't be a universal way because it should be based on the intent that you're trying to bring forth, right? So based on the intention, that should determine, you can say, the recipe in which you use. The recipe in which you use to consecrate it will be based on the intent. And that should always be the case. And because magic is etheric, magic is, you can say, in the techno world, or as we call cyberspace. Magic has entered into cyberspace, which is why you can say the youth nowadays, their main thing is going viral. Their main thing is getting the social media up, getting the numbers up, right? That's not something you can say the previous generations were really concerned with because that really wasn't a possibility. Like TikTok hasn't always been here. YouTube hasn't always been here. These are things that we actually grew up with, right? So we have seen these things evolve in real time, right? All right. So this is like a long-winded way of saying, as long as your magic has become etheric, because magic evolves, just like we all evolve, right? So if we all evolve and magic is now on an etheric plane, because your magic constantly evolves as your consciousness evolves, so your consciousness has to be etheric in order for the magic to be etheric. And the fifth element, you can say, of hip hop represents knowledge, meaning you have to begin to educate yourself to even advance, you can say, your ability to perform certain degrees of magic, certain levels of magic, certain levels of technomancy. It requires knowledge. And not just regular knowledge, we're talking about knowledge as in Dolph, the knowledge of Dolph, otherwise known as death. Because when we look at the tree of life, when we look at Dolph, it says knowledge, which is the entrance into the clip off. So that's the type of knowledge you can say that takes you into the world of chaos, that takes you into the klepofic world, right? That takes you into the etheric world, which is where your magic should be based at this current time. Because you can say that's the magic that actually created hip hop in the first place. That's the magic that actually made technomancy possible in the first place. So that's why it's really no beginning, no ending. Because you can say we can go all the way back to Kemetic times, and they were already practicing advanced forms of magic. They already had their form of Wi-Fi. They had their form of the internet. They already had their form of cyberspace where we can share information with each other no matter where we may be distance-wise. You can say we were already quantum entangled because we understood the spirit world. So basically, the same way a person logs into the internet and logs into social media, we were already doing that in the astral plane. So if you wanted to meet somebody, you would just meet them in the astral plane. If you wanted to perform certain acts, you would just do that in the astral plane, which we've already been doing. So because we have, you can say, got to a level of tech, we need technology now to, you can say, access the magical currency, which is what I'm saying here. Because as we know, it was through technology that we even advanced ourselves to this level that we're on now. So you can say what makes us more advanced, you could say, than a previous generation, who basically, you can say, if they were not into technology, basically the only way somebody can be more advanced than you is if they were not into technology. Basically, I said that backwards. Meaning that if your elders were not technomancers themselves, then you can say your level of understanding magic is more advanced because you understand technology at this point. You understand what it means, you can say, to be a content creator. You understand that lifestyle, how much energy it takes to, produce content on a daily basis, if that is what your intention is, right? How to build a platform for yourself, right? That all that is a form of currency, which means it's all a form of magic, right? So if it's all a form of currency and magic, what's up, Tangela at 93? If it's all a form of magic, then your magic should be geared towards cyberspace because these are the times that we are in. So if we are in the times where we are connected quantumly through technology, through the internet, through social media, then that's where the magic should be directed. In terms of if you're trying to evolve and advance your magic, if you want your magic to be etheric, going beyond the four elements, if you want to access that fifth element, you got to do it through Doth, through knowledge. And this is what makes a person a technomancer because they're going through those degrees of how to actually make these things possible. So when we think about people that's able to just make hits, like make beats that sound crazy, to create lyrics that's just fucking ridiculous, this doesn't just happen, just haphazardly. This requires a person to have access to Doth, as we call knowledge. And this is how you advance your degrees in technomancy, which is the current form of magic, the most evolved form of magic, because you're strictly dealing with the spirit element directly. See, when we deal with the four base elements, we're dealing with the spirit element indirectly. So when we're dealing with fire, water, air, and earth, we're dealing with the spirit element indirectly. Because all of those elements have a form of spirit, but it's just a partial form of the spirit. So when we work with the four base elements, we're working with a partial form of spirit. So when we go directly into that fifth degree, into that fifth element, now we're working, you can say you're working with all the elements at once. So instead of working with one element at a time, you're working with all elements at once. And that's what makes something, you can say, spiritual. What makes something spiritual is it contains all elements. So that's why when people say you need to visualize, you need to activate all your senses, all your five senses, They're just talking about the elements. You need to activate all your elements. You need to activate the heat in your body, the fire. You need to activate your emotions, the water. You need to activate your thinking, the air. Peace and love. Michelle, salute to you. Salute to the members. Salute to you. Much love to you. So that's what we should strive towards. To make your magic spiritual, going beyond the four elements. That's how you become a technomancer, which is, you can say, the current version of what it means to be an alchemist, the current form of alchemy. Because again, we're not going to be able to repeat what has already been done by whatever civilization that we may honor, that we may look up to. Like hip hop is, you can say it's like the resurrection of the Kemetic mindset. But we're not going to be able to have access to everything the Egyptians had access to. But we can have everything the Americans have access to, right? Alrighty. I think I made the point. Good. I didn't mean to go this long with it. But I just wanted to make it perfectly clear so that we should now understand crystals, energy grids, and speaking in tongues as a form of possession to identify the spirit that you're actually working with. So the more spirits you work with, the more familiar you become with their energy signature, and the more familiar you become with their energy signature, the more you can say formulate and calculate the possibilities that are possible when you work with these particular energies. So meaning we may not understand all 360 degrees of every, you can say, spirit or energy. Everything contains, you can say, 360 degrees. So for example, we may look at the surface of a thing. Okay, well, this is a goddess of war, for example, Eris, right? If we look at Eris is a goddess of war. So we would look at that as, okay, well, I should work with her, if I'm going through war times, if I'm going through, something that requires competition or some form of sports, some form of business, right? But that would be looking at it on the surface. Because you can say she's also a goddess of resurrection, because she's actually a not Neptunian, a actually trans-Plutonian point, meaning she's connected with the orbit of Pluto. So she also has Plutonian traits due to her proximity to Pluto. So that means that actually also gives her access to the underworld, which is why she's called the goddess of discord and strife, because she has access to the underworld. So now you can say that expands the possibilities as to why you would want to work with her, for example, beyond just her standout attributes of, war. Be like, okay, this is actually a gateway or portal to the underworld as well. So this actually is a whole alternative way to work with this energy once you have a full understanding of all 360 degrees. So this is basically just encouraging you to look beyond the surface of these particular deities and look at it from all angles, because the very energy or deity that you need to work with may be the most unsuspecting, right? It'd be the energy you least expect, instead of, okay, well, for example, I need to get stronger, so I need to work with the energy of Mars, or I need to work with the energy of the sun. Well, the solution may be a planet that you don't even associate with strength, but indirectly, the planet is associated with strength, just not directly. So it's really the indirect currents. You must master the indirect currents, and that's when things begin to start popping for real. So that's my message for the morning. We're going to get the morning started. I'm wishing everybody the best. I'm going to bring, more high quality content. I actually forgot the mic. So I was supposed to have the mic in, so, to give you even better audio, but, I left that. All right, so I'll be sure to have that next time. Again, I just wanted to test this on a new device. It seems like we didn't have any issues, no glitches, so everything should be, good. So just going forward. And again, next time I have better quality audio. So we see the video is already better. Everything is crystal clear. So now I just have to make sure that I bring the mic, to keep the audio up to par. So we'll look forward to that next time. Hopefully everybody steps the game up, steps the levels up. Don't become comfortable with your rank, especially if you're on a dark path, a left-handed path. I mean, if you become stagnant, you begin to lose rank. Just in case you didn't know. If you become stagnant, your rank actually decreases. That's really the catch-22 about, dealing with the dark arts. You have to actually push forward. You really have no choice. Because, like, you could say energy is always in motion with you. Like, you start to embody chaos. So the only way to order the chaos, you could say, is to keep it in motion, is to keep it actually moving. It's like you're figuring out a puzzle while the pieces are moving. So it's one thing, to have puzzle pieces that's just sitting on a table. But imagine if those puzzle pieces were actually moving and you actually had to assemble something while the pieces are actually moving. That's the difference between the light side and the dark side. The light side is like the puzzle pieces are still, so the energies are already orderly. They already have a set form. They already have a set motion. But when you're dealing with the chaos, energy may behave this way or that way. You can say they don't really have set attributes. The energy may behave in a way that you didn't expect it to behave. So you have to begin to take into consideration more angles. Again, it's just like working with quantum energy. The energy can behave like a particle, but it can also behave like a wave. And it's actually based on the conscious intent of the observer as well. So meaning the result you're going to get is actually based on your intent and your consciousness being a part of the magical work. That's the difference between, you can say, the light path and the dark path. Meaning when you're on the dark path, your consciousness actually influences the result of your magical workings. That's not necessarily the case when you're working, you can say, with the lighter path, because the energies are already predetermined. But when you're working with the chaos, the energy is not predetermined. So your consciousness actually influences. So with that, I bear peace 93.